into the cloud. Well, welcome everyone to the 6th of our Sanders County Democrats virtual cinema series. And we've entitled this whole series, What Unites Us. And the goal of the monthly virtual cinema series was to explore the topics that connect all of us here in Sanders County without any partisan basis at all. And the goal was to overcome the political divide that seems imposed upon us and instead find the ways that connect us with the place that we love here in Western Montana. Without further ado, I am going to mute everyone. Thank you for being here. And you'll have to excuse me just a bit in that there are many different moving parts. I have 7 items to share. And the first one is with, the first one is for, goodness gracious. I don't know why I can't share my screen. So sorry about this. I thought I had everything all lined up. Let me try this. So, goodness. Here we are. So first up is Donna Mifflin, who is going to be highlighting Betty Meyer, who is a Sanders County Democrat, longtime Sanders County Democrat, and also a veteran. And I hope you can see the screen. Yes, Donna, you're up. You're muted.
Welcome to a tribute to Sanders County Senior Democrat, our friend Betty Elizabeth Meyer. She was born and raised in Paradise. You want to flip, Mindy? Born and raised in Paradise. Today, she still lives in the neighborhood right across the alley from the house that she was born in Paradise. Flip. She told me that she was born in that time when there was a large patriotic feeling, the threat of fascism. Everyone was taking it seriously. Her brothers, her older brothers, had already joined the service. Flip. She was not able to join, of course, because she was a woman back then. So she had to hit age 20 before she could enlist. She was ready to go. She was living, I think, in Spokane, and signed up on her 20th birthday. She couldn't serve in the Army again because she was a woman back then. So she ended up serving in the Women's Army Corps that eventually was incorporated into the regular Army. One of our pleasures being a Democrat was she got to meet when Diane McGone ran for House Representative in 2018 was another Mineral County's senior Democrat, Joe McGone. And she's pretty darn happy every time to tell everyone he's a year older than she is. She will be 98 at her birthday in a couple of months here. Joe McGone served from 41 to 45. Betty served for 2 years. When she returned from the service, then, like so many of her fellow service people, she and her husband worked at Boeing until retirement and then returned to her native Paradise. And she now lives in the house across the alley from the house on the main highway through Paradise, where she was born. This is Joe and Diamond and McGone when they were down to Plains the first time. Flip. So the first time she actually met Joe was the day in 2018 when John Tester was out doing a meet and greet. So we drove over to Superior. She had incidentally ran into Tester at the airport when she went on the Veterans Honor Flight one year and caught him and spoke to him then. So she could not wait. So she told everybody, I'm going to give him a hug. Flip. And she got her goal done. Flip. She turned around, and she's still very charming and engaging, as is Joe McGone. She turned around and said to the audience, "I'm going to give him a hug," and marched right up there, and everybody laughed, and by golly, she got her done. Flip. Everybody had a good time with Chester. He warned us back in 18. I'm telling you, this is an important race. Back then, he was saying, and it's going to be expensive. The opposition has a lot of money to spend, so we've got to write out the checks and do your part in your communities, gathering every vote that we can. Flip. I think this is Joe McGone's face when he first met Betty. Wow, why didn't I meet her when I was 20? They had such a good time visiting together. They're both sharp enough. They could tell stories about the war. When they moved from this spot to this port, Joe was overseas in combat for 4 years. Betty was always stateside here in California, but they could tell stories, and they were each sharp enough to think, oh, I was at this point when that happened. I was there when this happened. And Betty had a brother who was in a prison camp for 4 years. So all that stress, even while she was in the service, and by the time they got home, until he finally got home. Next. Oh, who is that? How did that slide get in there? Oh, move right on. Joe and Betty again in 2019, when we did a veterans event on a Sunday morning down at the Legion Hall in Paradise. Both of them dressed in her blue. She still wears her, starting to get worn out now. I better get her a new one. Her Sanders County Democrat sweatshirt. She loves Ed. Remember the spring meal that we had out at Jim Elliott's house? We had a burger fry, and Mindy provided the elk that she had shot for the burgers that day. Had a good crowd, some new folks. It was great to see everyone. Here's Doug Farrell visiting with now departed from our community, Jean Morrison, who was such an important part for years. As far as I know, Jean is living in Mexico with one of her daughters there. So a dear presence missed in our community. More of the crowd, added Elliott's there. You see Deb, let's see, who else do we recognize in that crowd? I had identified him on my computer at home here.
Our secretary, Daisy Carl Smith, is back there. Fletchers are there. We have precinct people that are there. And anyway, many Dems that have been faithful.
And next, part of the reason we had that was our spring meeting, a get together and a fun social setting. And Monica Lundeen, who's been in the Democratic Party for years, was making visits around to all of the county parties that year. That was probably her last year, I believe. Her husband had health issues, and that was the last year that she did a good job. So she will be fondly remembered for the service she did for the Montana Democrats. Then in 2019, we did a fall fling, a fundraiser with candidate visits here in Plains out at the fairgrounds. We had a great attendance for that. And we had, I think, 9 candidates showed up for that Sunday afternoon. Here's towards the end of the banquet, after everyone's done their speech. On the far left, you will see former candidate Kathleen Williams, who Betty was totally enamored with. In the background is Bryce Bennett. I believe he's working in DC now. On the far right there, the bearded guy, Paul Morales, former co-chair, has retired, and they've moved down to Denver. So, and you see, I would like to tell Betty's daughters, oh yeah, look, here she has her checkbook out again. Another shot of the banquet out at the fairgrounds that fall. See Mark Sheets in the background here. This is the, oh, sorry, go ahead. This is the January 2020 quarterly meeting that we did down at my house here in Plains. That's Betty on the couch over there on the right, seated, talking with Patty Morris. The white-haired gal is Karen Sheets, our former treasurer. Let's see, she's talking with Bev there. Here's Ernie Sheets, who's still involved in Sanders County housing issues. Ernie Scherzer. Did I say Ernie Sheets? Sorry, Ernie Scherzer. So anyway, we had a nice attendance that day on a snowy January to get that year started. More pictures of the crowd. Back in the far corner by the door, trying to make their escape, are Paul and Lynn, who did make their escape and retired off to Denver. Let's see, is that Jim Slora in front of the door there, I believe? Mindy's got her clipboard, assigning us all out parts. Patty Morris, who lives down towards Paradise, and Betty on the couch. Bev is in the corner. Ernie, Janet Lindy's here. I know that that's the backside of Ellen Childress's pretty silver head. Betty has a highway property in Plains. That little crumbly house is where she was born at. So when she came back, she bought that property and says she will never sell it. If the Paradise gets a sewer, she would get a sewer put in there and rebuild some other house for her on that location. But it's a great highway corner, and she's always willing to post candidate signs and do what she can. Last campaign, she wasn't quite up to knocking doors at only 96, but so she made phone calls for us that term. She met with Monica Trinnell the previous election cycle when during COVID, as you can see, everyone is masked and socially spaced, even outdoors. She met with Monica Trinnell when she did her huge 500-mile background. This was the meeting out at the St. Regis area campground between Plains and Paradise that night. There she is, wearing her colors. She's got the Trinnell shirt on. This is a pic I clicked with Betty one night. She got a phone call while I was there. And probably just like when she was a teenager at her age still, talking on the phone, threw her leg up over the arm of the chair, had a nice chat with one of her friends.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you, Betty, for her service.
Yep.
And the next person, go ahead.
Commander Humphrey, get yourself off mute. You're next up. Coming right up here.
Okay.
Okay, you're on.
I'm on.
You're on.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Tom.
I will start my little spiel here that you guys are kind enough to get me through. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. When it comes to legislation, it's the Democratic Party that has led the way in initiating and supporting laws, funding, and policies that support veterans. Democrats are the source of favorable laws for veterans all across the state, local, state, and national levels. I know that because I am a veteran who relies on those services. My military service in the United States Navy began with my enlistment in March of 1960. Following my graduation from the Naval Academy in 1965, my military career was dedicated to flying duties in the test and evaluation community. As a naval aviator, I flew the A-7E Corsair during 2 combat tours to Vietnam. After 24 years of service, I retired with the rank of commander in 1984.
You're not on the screen. Never mind. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry.
That was my director here is telling me something. Since then, I have benefited from the Veterans Affairs Administration and my medical care. Of Montana's over 1 million citizens, 10% of us are veterans. Over 90% are married to, related to, or love a vet. How could you not? A short video, my many thanks go to Senator John Tester, chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. He has done and continues to do much for us Montana veterans. As Senator Tester said, and I quote, "America's veterans have sacrificed greatly for our nation And when they come home, it's our turn to work for them. It's our responsibility to make sure all veterans receive the care and benefits they have earned. That's it. A short video follows to illustrate what is available to Montana veterans. Please share these benefits with veterans that you know. And that is my spiel.
Thank you so much, Tom. I want to remind everyone that what we are going to see right now is all about Montana and Montana veterans. And I do want to say that it's a bit difficult.
You muted? Have you muted yourself?
I haven't how to do that.
I'll show you.
Mute.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties on getting the screen up.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm going to pause the these were all queued up, but there are so many of them that they are difficult to have gotten. Here we are.
Populations in the country. About 1 in 10 Montanans is a veteran, and a lot of them are struggling.
I went through 18.5 years of how to be a soldier, and they gave me less than a year on how to be a civilian.
I was so broken. You know, I didn't know. I had tried to take my life.
Mindy, can you do any more volume on that?
Out of the court system and back into regular day-to-day life.
Montana has one of the highest per capita veteran populations in the country. About 1 in 10 Montanans is a veteran, and a lot of them are struggling.
I went through 18.5 years of how to be a soldier, and they gave me less than a year on how to be a civilian.
I was so broken. You know, I didn't know. I had tried to take my life on a couple occasions. I had 2 young girls, a wife. I was not a father. I wasn't a husband. I was just an alcoholic.
Fortunately, Montana is also home to some successful and unique programs that are helping post 9/11 veterans tackle the transition back into life as a civilian.
Works. It's one part of a multimedia effort to increase understanding between our military and civilians and to help ease the transition for vets coming home. I'm Susie Cohen. In this show, we're going to check out some programs that are changing and even saving lives of vets and their families across the state. We'll also find out how and why they work. Let's start in Billings, where one of the state's 4 veterans treatment courts is helping vets turn struggles into success.
Montana has many, many veterans. We have a lot of folks who rise up to serve. And then when they return to civilian life, they're broken.
I was so broken. I had tried to take my life on a couple occasions. I had 2 young girls, a wife. I was not a father. I wasn't a husband. I was just an alcoholic.
Me and my next door neighbor in Great Falls kind of got into a verbal altercation, and I was on my property, and I thought that I was in the legal limits of telling him if he comes into my property that I can use a firearm, and I was obviously in the wrong.
I was a pretty heavy alcoholic. I drank all the time. It's pretty much all that really got me in here was just bad choices.
Alcohol is still the #1 drug of choice. We have many, many folks from all branches of the service who are addicted to opiates.
I actually saw it when I was still in the military. We had a lot of people when we returned from Iraq that were wounded that would get sent for medical treatment, and they would give them, you know, narcotic pain relievers, just carte blanche. Here you go. Here's 300 of them, and then they're like, okay, you're better. Cut them off. You can't do that with pharmaceuticals.
It wasn't until I was facing my 4th DUI, which is a felony in the state of Montana, and I remember being approached while I was in jail by one of the vet court liaisons and asked if I was interested, and I said yes.
You doing okay today? Okay. I'm a district court judge in the 13th Judicial District for the state of Montana, and I have the privilege of presiding over the Veterans Treatment Court. You're prompt and you're present, which is great. The Camel Court began in February of 2011. Originally, I had a felony DUI court, and what we learned is over 60% of the veterans had a DUI. And so we thought we should try a designated Veterans Treatment Court to separate them out and try to capitalize on some of the things that were going on post-service and see if we couldn't put them all together and keep them on one docket and wrap the services around them. I can't imagine any reason he wouldn't be a fit for the Camel Court. It's very, very holistic. We look at, you know, where they were at even prior to service, what occurred during service, but what I can also say is that we look at why did you join the service? Thank you for putting your name on a piece of paper and saying you would die for this country. And what brought you to us? How is it that you got a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, yet you ended up with a felony?
It's a round table. You'll have representatives from treatment, probation and parole, our yoga instructor, our court coordinators, our volunteers, our interns, the judge, me, and other Billings police officers that are on the team. We get together and get a game plan to help the judge know what's going on with every single participant. The main thing is it's not that you do the crime, you do the time. You know, a traditional court track, someone comes in, this is what you've been charged with, guilty or not guilty. They say not guilty, okay, we're gonna have a trial. Okay, we found you guilty and you're going to prison. Wipe our hands of you, we're done. This one, most of our participants are post-judgment. They've changed their plea to say guilty so that they can get into the program. There's a lot more incentive for our participants. A lot of them can walk away as a successful graduate without whatever charge got them there on their record anymore.
It gave me my life back. I don't know, it just reminded me of what's important in life. And, you know, today the relationship that I have with my daughters and my wife is, you know, I wouldn't change it for anything. You know, I'm just glad that the program helped me keep them in my life. Because if I would have kept going the way I was going, I wouldn't have them.
The court changed my life a lot because I wasn't really acting like an adult like I should have been. I wasn't taking care of my bills. I wasn't taking care of myself. And this court has actually taught me how to do that. At first, I didn't think that this court would actually help me with anything. Like, I figured, like, oh, I can get sober on my own. I don't need anybody's help. But that ended up becoming the biggest lie I think I've ever told myself.
What I do?
Well, during the graduation, I might get a little emotional. It's been a long 20 months. I've put in a lot of work, and it didn't come easy. You know, when I first started the vet court, I was so down on myself that I attempted suicide. And after that attempt, when nobody really cared about me, Judge Nisley showed up to the hospital, and she told me that I could do this.
I've heard the phrase, the treatment court's getting called a hug-a-thug program, to where we're taking someone, you know, a lot of officers don't understand the importance of the court. And my perspective has changed drastically. I see the results, I see the recidivism rates, you know, people not reoffending.
This is probably the single greatest experience that I've had in 30 years of criminal justice, because this is a deserving population. This is a population of folks who may not have otherwise ever set foot inside a jail door. But to say, you know, to see them with their kids, to keep their marriage together. That's a big deal from the broken people who come the first day.
The state's other camo courts are in Missoula, Great Falls, and Bozeman. Now I'd like to welcome two guests with firsthand experience with the struggles and the services available to help them. Mark Gollinger served with the Navy Seabees and now helps vets in Southwest Montana find meaningful jobs. Anton Johnson was a combat engineer during Operation Enduring Freedom and now does outreach for the Vet Center in Missoula. Welcome. Let's start off talking about treatment courts. You take part in a treatment court, yes?
Yes, so in the Missoula treatment court, I'm a part of the team that helps with the mental health aspect of it. My job as the Missoula Vet Center outreach personnel affords me the ability to help the treatment court get their veterans linked to services in the Missoula Vet Center, and also kind of keep them on pace with what's going on in our center and how that could affect their transition out of the court system and back into regular day-to-day life. And so you've seen the life-saving difference that these courts can make, both of you. Yes, it it's very impactful. Instead of just throwing the book at someone and having them do the punishment, they actually get to work hand in hand with the folks that normally would be keeping a close eye on them, whether it's probation and parole, the judges, their defense attorneys, prosecutors, that kind of stuff. So they get to develop a plan on how to make that veteran successful, and sometimes they need a little encouragement, but for the most part, if they stick to the plan and work towards their goal, they can succeed and come away from it a better person. And I think, Mark, you said that you think that it really cuts into the suicide.
Well, a lot of times, suicide is the final option, and it gets you out of a bad situation in somebody that's in that mindset. By having the options that are given to them in the treatment courts, they realize that not everything's lost, that there is a way out, and it's a neat concept. It's very humbling that people are taking the time to actually take a vet aside and mentor them and get them through this dark side instead of just sending them to the prison.
What do you guys think are the biggest issues facing these courts?
Well, I think the big things a lot of times that land the veterans in it is the mixed aspect of mental health as well as the drugs and alcohol. So those two things tend to go hand in hand. When you're dealing with a veteran, specifically things like post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injuries definitely play a key part in veterans making those decisions, and so making sure that we're not punishing them for some of the traumas they've experienced and the mental health state they might be in that led them down this path can definitely improve their situation.
It was interesting when we were shooting it. It was like an emotional roller coaster. Would you agree? I mean, it was some super sad stuff as well as some just joyous scenes.
Yeah, throughout the different phases that they go through, there's special things that they get, whether it's just accolades or some new, steps that they can take, as well as if they stumble, they don't just get automatically punished. There's some different things put in place to make sure that they can see the errors in their ways and correct those with, different assignments, they call them, or rewards programs and stuff like that. So it's a really good way to motivate the veterans to better themselves instead of, hanging this punishment over their head. It's more of a kind of encouraging them to succeed.
Okay, so this summer, the U.S. Senate passed a bill sponsored by both Montana senators to increase funding for veterans treatment courts. How do you think this could affect what they can do, who they can help?
Well, I know Missoula just recently received some of that funding, and it's opened up many doors for veterans. Now they can provide this service with more veterans at one time. So before they were limited to a set number, and that number's increased now. So the opportunity for veterans to
getting along with others, levels of anxiety, depression. For all 12 of those questions, there was improvement, and on about 5 of them, there was significant improvement.
Upon returning home, I fished 3, 4, 5 days a week, as much as my wife will let me out of the house to do it. So it's just really, it's empowering.
For me, I wasn't like an antisocial person. I was like really withdrawn to myself, taking a lot of medications. There was a lot of things going on. After I left here, all of that stuff just immediately came to a stop. I got home, talked to my wife, and like, listen, with this medication, I'm going to talk to my doctor. We're going to get weaned off of this.
When he was on the solo retreat out here, the fishing experience, I was sent pictures, and he was smiling. I'd never seen that smile before. And there was just a change in him. I
have more energy. I'm just able to spend more time with my family, spend more time with my wife, and just be a more happy person overall, instead of being just that miserable guy that's just like existing, you know?
It just makes you realize my problems aren't as big as somebody else's problems. I can get over my hurdles because these people can too. You know, it just, a lot of the times when you live at home or you live in a small town like we do, you feel like your issues are bigger than everybody else's, or your problems are worse, or it's not. There's people everywhere out there has issues and problems, and it's just finding a way to overcome them. And sometimes you just need to sit back and take that breath and say, hey, it's not that bad. Coming out here puts everything into perspective. You know, you kind of realize how little your problems are and how there's bigger things to worry about in life. You know, losing a leg is nothing. You know, having a healthy relationship with your wife and being there for your kids and setting a positive example. It doesn't matter if you're missing a leg, an arm, anything.
You know, there's lots of people that say this program isn't about fly fishing, it's about love and showing unconditional love.
You know, everyone needs to just close their eyes and take a breath every now and then, and that's what this is. You know, it's just a tremendous chance to sort of clear your mind and recharge the batteries and understand there's bigger fish to fry in the world, and your issues aren't that big.
Donations make it possible for Warriors in Quiet Waters to provide free travel, lodging, meals, and professional fly fishing instruction to veterans. And Warriors get to take their fishing gear home to keep the therapy going. Okay, so fly fishing. You said you send a lot of folks from the Vet Center over to like programs like this. How come?
Well, we see the therapeutic aspect of getting out into nature, the river, learning a new skill that they can take home. Like you said, it's not just that one weekend. They get to use those skills in the future where they're at, and hopefully, you know, share that love of fishing with their family and other veterans and friends.
So, I mean, you really see the difference, though?
I do. You know, one that I'm thinking of in particularly was a veteran who was struggling and got a chance to go out with them. And when he returned home, started fishing much more frequently, and now is working on getting his guide's license with a goal to take other veterans out and show them what fly fishing can do.
So do you think it's being out in nature? Do you think it's the learning the new thing? What is it? Is there anything in particular about this particular type of therapy that you see makes a difference, Mark?
You know, the outdoor, anything outdoors is rewarding in itself. You know, we live in a beautiful state. For somebody to get out and enjoy themselves in the outdoors is great. I think community is a big part of the success of these programs, because like the gentleman on the video talked, he was with somebody else that was an amputee, and you know, they're instantly had that bond. Getting veterans together and talking about their experiences, that's therapy alone. When you're out doing something simple as fishing, and getting the kind of success that Anton was talking about with his vet, that's great.
All the vets that were coming to this particular outing were just so struck by the magic of Montana. It seems like a pretty special place to be able to do this. Do you know if these kind of programs are going on all over, or?
Yeah, I believe that there's similar programs in a lot of states that I've kind of looked into, and so that's kind of what's great about using the natural resources in your state. Is it might look a little different depending on where you live, but the access to some of these programs is expanding on a pretty dynamic level.
Okay, so you might think that combat veterans would be seeking peace, quiet, and calm upon returning to civilian life. But our next program, which Anton knows all about, is proving the opposite by introducing them to extreme sports.
I went through 18.5 years of how to be a soldier, and they gave me less than a year on how to be a civilian. And so you get lost and you lose who you are. So when you go on that river and you're heading down that river and you hit those rapids, you remember who you are, and it gives that voice back to you. You know, Mike and his crew out here, they saved my life.
The name is X Sports for Vets, and that stands for Extreme Sports for Veterans. And what we do is we use high-intensity sports to help veterans reintegrate back into society. What we see is a lot of times veterans like myself, when we go overseas, our adrenaline levels and our cortisol levels ride at a pretty large high. So when they return home and those adrenaline levels aren't there, we start to see some issues. You can get into a depressive state, start isolating, and that's where we start being concerned about suicide.
You know, it shouldn't work. You shouldn't be able to just pull people out and put them on in a kind of an extreme environment. You know, it's not bullets whizzing over your head, but, you know, it gets the old heart pumping. And then people start a natural dialogue of what's going on in their lives.
By replacing the risky behaviors that most veterans seek out, whether it's drinking, driving fast, getting into fights, if we can replace that with something fun and safe like extreme sports, then hopefully we can build those adrenaline rushes up to a safe level, as well as tie it with something that's going to be beneficial for them. Learning a new sport, meeting new friends, building a new community, as well as getting connected with the services that might help them in the future.
So we got riverboarding, we got whitewater rafting, we got skydiving, we got the skiing, we got rock climbing, we have the powered hang gliding, aka trike flying. You know, so there's a whole bunch of stuff.
It's a total therapy. I sleep better, I can think, my whole person is better after doing this because I can relax.
I've seen them come out and go from unemployed to getting jobs. I've seen people with no chance of having a relationship get married. You know, rebuilding trust with people. You know, I think everybody's victory is what they define it as.
Tonight I will be more relaxed. My anxiety is less because I have gone out there and I have ran the river and I can breathe. You know, I will be exhausted, my back will hurt, my shoulders, everything will hurt, but I will feel good. This is why I do this, is because this saved me. I believe that with all my heart and soul. I would not be here today if it wasn't for this.
So how does that feel when you hear someone say you saved them?
You know, it never gets old. And that's not the first time I've heard a veteran mention the impact that Extreme Sports for Veterans and the organization that runs it makes in their life. You know, Mark touched on the camaraderie that's built, or that instant connection of, you know, veteran to veteran. And that extends into the activities of the extreme sports. So whether it's throwing yourself down the river on a riverboard or climbing up a rock wall, you're building those connections with other veterans that you may have lost when you left the service, now with new veterans in your community.
And I understand, Mark, you said you were trying to expand X Sports into Butte?
Oh, yes. You know, I've been working with Anton for a few years, both professionally and with the X Sports.
Why do you want it in Butte?
Because I see the value in it. The few events that we've done already, we've already see that connection between the veterans, and they're taking that, you know, not just that day that they're going out on the climbing rocks. They're socializing now with each other, and so they're doing their own therapy after hours, after the export events. So I see value in these alternative therapies, whether it be extreme sports or equine therapy or fly fishing. All of it has some value, and I think it's healthier than giving a vet a bottle of pills and send them to a therapist.
Safer.
Safer.
What about, like, is there any particular sport that you find that the vets like the most?
Well, riverboarding is the one that I think is the most tried and true with us, partially because we do it on a weekly basis, so veterans can come in and improve their skills over time, as well as connect with each other week in and week out. And so that one just seems to really resonate with them. You're by yourself going down the river, but you have a whole team, and that's kind of emulates what you were when you were in the service. You didn't do anything directly by yourself. You had other men and women looking after you and watching your back. And as you go down the river, much like when you're overseas fighting a war, you have this group who is taking on something that seems dangerous, but working together to make sure everyone gets to the end safely.
Is there any particular sport or anything you think you might be using in Butte, if you guys can get exports over there?
We've been pretty successful with the rock climbing and the mountain biking. I really want to get the trike flying because.
What is that?
So trike flying is it's a kind of a sport aircraft. It's a two-seater with a hang glider wing up top, and there's a propeller behind you. And you and the pilot get to take off, and throughout the course, he's actually an instructor, so he lets you take over and kind of gives you a little bit on the job training of how to fly it. And it's an amazing experience because of the open cockpit, being able to look over the edge and just see the ground and just kind of feel the wind in your face. And so it's pretty exhilarating. And another great aspect about it is that it's very open to a lot of disabilities or limitations. So if a veteran comes out with us on that and they have a hard time getting into climbing gear and scaling a wall, as long as we can get them in that seat and strap them in, they get to experience what it's like to fly open and free.
And I know that the like the riverboarding will happen in the summer, but there's also, I guess, extreme sports that vets can be involved in all year long, right?
Yes, that's true. So we usually go year-round. Starts with whitewater rafting, then we do riverboarding, then we do the trike flying or powered hang gliding. In there we do rock climbing in Butte, we do the mountain biking, and then winter it slows down a little bit, but we do get out and do skiing and snowboarding. We're looking at adding some cross-country skiing, maybe some snowshoeing, just stuff to round it out.
Is there anything else that you guys want to add about extreme sports for vets?
It's an amazing program that wouldn't be possible without the great community involvement. That's where the donations come from, is from local donors. And so because of the great state of Montana and supporting their veterans, we've been able to run that program for 8 years now, and it's going strong.
Anything else, Mark?
Let's get 2019 is going to be the year that the Butte chapter really gets established. That's my goal.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that wraps it up for our show right now. I want to thank my guests for sharing their insight and understanding with us, and for you for sharing your time. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you
You're muted, Mindy.
So we already do some of this in Sanders County, and we could do more. We have taken these cinema series in the past 6 months and gone even farther. We already have a disabled hunting program here in Sanders County, and we certainly have the opportunity for sports. So thanks so much for watching that, and it's really eye-opening for me. Donna?
Yes, and I just wanted to add that there was a play done by the Montana Repertory Theater in November. Jean Morrison would have been one of the promoters for that, but with her being out of the community, it was poorly attended this spring. they were going to do a presentation over at Fort Harrison's for veterans and offered a Zoom link. By the time I got caught up with the director, I was just a day or two late to do that. So I'll check in with him. And the play was much of the themes like this. People came home being from an extreme environment and chaos and supposed to just jump right back into military life. So they gave a pre-warning. It's kind of tough stuff, but it's pretty realistic. The play was well done with showing all that stuff and with an odd bits of humor thrown in here and there to lighten it. But I'll ask them in October if they would offer a link for veterans again at Veterans Day this fall. Are we moving to Chad now?
Chad, would you like to speak before I show the VA clip? We do have a new Missoula VA Center, which was talked about in this video, and it is fabulous in what it can offer. So Chad, would you like to talk a little bit about that and then also about Senator Tester? Let me introduce Chad to you first. Chad Campbell is the Regional Director for Senator John Tester. John Tester is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee in our Senate, of course. And he has been instrumental in offering so much funding and so many opportunities for our veterans here in this state. And we can't thank him enough. So Chad?
Yes, no, thank you so much, Mindy, for inviting me. I really do appreciate it. I hope all of you are doing well this evening. And that was a great video to show just some of the great things that are happening in the veterans world on the community side. I've been, just a little bit about myself. I've been the senator's director for about 9 years. My mother was the deputy director for Senator Max Baucus for about 10 years. So that's how I met John back in 2006. I myself always wish I could have been a veteran. I am not, but I couldn't get in because of some health reasons, but my father was, both my grandparents were. My father was a Vietnam veteran and he died of Agent Orange when I was 8 in 1993. So veterans became very near and dear to my heart. And so when I got brought on the senator's team, I got pretty involved with his veterans portfolio. And has been doing a lot of that over the past, now about, like I said, about 9 years. So I figured, first off, I want to, thank all the veterans that are in the audience, for their service. I know that I think Mindy mentioned a few of them, and I know Betty Meyer and her great service in World War II. I personally know Tom Humphreys. I see Tom over there and all the great stuff he's done for veterans and connecting us with a lot. So thank you so much. And we do owe you everything. As the senator says, that it's, we should never be having quarrels about taking care of our nation's vets and those that have sacrificed all. But what I'll do real quickly is just kind of give a rundown of some of the legislation that is going on right now, some of the bigger things that are happening. One of the things is that the senator, through ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan, was able to get an additional $1.5 million directly to Montana to the Volunteers of America. And they help out. They have a program that helps a lot with homeless veterans or at risk of being homeless veterans. And they have a great program there. I think they have a place in pretty much every one of the big 7. So I always tell veterans, if there is anything like that, to reach out to the Volunteers of America, because there is some good programs there to help folks with that. And I've seen a lot of veterans, especially right now with just a lot of the housing issues. It's a very important program. The senator is very glad to continue to support that. In March, the senator also got the budget passed. He was the only Montana congressional delegate to vote for it. but in it, there was a lot of stuff for not just Ukraine and the DoD, which he's also the chairman of the subcommittee of appropriations for the Department of Defense. But there's also a lot of things that he got in there for the VA, including about $14 billion for VA mental health care, about $6 billion for information technologies, $3 billion for additional construction and expanding, which I know we're looking at to try to get more clinics in Montana or expand existing clinics. Also more for research, about $2 billion for VA caregivers, and then also some smaller things, but things that are very important. The senator made sure that there was about $120 million extra to tackle the disability claims backlog, because there's a lot of veterans that qualify for disabilities, and because of COVID-19, some of that has been slowed down. So the senator is looking at ways to try to speed up that. There's also, the senator is looking to improve dental care, even though only about 6% of veterans have dental care through the VA. That's something that in Montana has been somewhat of an issue. And so the senator has been talking with Secretary McDonough, the secretary of the VA, to try to figure out ways to improve those programs. You know, when I first joined or first met John many, many years ago, the thing that he always said, there's two things that make good government. He said that's transparency and accountability. And so one of the things that he has been working on is trying to find ways to make VA oversight better. Because if you don't have good oversight, no matter what the laws, you're not going to be able to enforce them well or make sure that they're being implemented the way they should. So he has worked on a bipartisan bill that he's introduced that will give the Office of Inspector General some more oversight powers, especially with subpoena power, to get more oversight, especially with VA employment. Right now, if a VA employee quits or is fired, the OIG cannot go talk to them and try to figure out more of what happened. This will give them the ability to do so, which is, it sounds small, but it's a pretty big thing to kind of have more oversight on the VA. There's also, the senator has been working for a long time. One of his biggest bills in the past few years was the Commander John Scott Hannon bill, which is all about VA mental health care. And there has been, just recently, we've gotten some of the Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox suicide prevention grants that are out there now. So if there are nonprofits that are working with veteran mental health care in some capacity, they might qualify for one of these grants to help veterans out. And it is a great thing that we were able to get a lot of this in Montana. The senator also, for many years, has been fighting for female veterans. A lot of them, you know, since there are more female veterans now, a lot of the facilities were never really made for them, especially when it comes to healthcare. So the senator is continuing to fight to make sure there is money to change the infrastructure and give women the safety and security that they need while they're getting their healthcare. We also just, the senator has had a bill passed that will give access to life-saving breast cancer screenings in the VA. And so these are things that will be really beneficial for our female veterans. There's also the last two things I'll kind of speak on is that the senator also was working with the previous administration had kind of set forth a directive to really try to change what qualified as a VA caregiver and what veterans could qualify to have a VA caregiver. And at the time that was going to cut out about 90% of the caregivers and pretty much cut them out of the program. So the senator for the past year has been really pushing Secretary McDonough to reverse that decision and really try to think this thing more through and try to figure out what they're actually really trying to achieve. So this administration thankfully did listen, and just a month ago, Secretary McDonough reversed that. And now none of those people are going to be kicked off their caregiver support as of right now. And hopefully, you know, whatever changes they make are not going to impact any of our veterans in Montana of getting the services they deserve. The last thing I'll go through is the senator's probably one of his biggest bills that he's ever done. And I've been lucky enough to been working with him on this since pretty much the start. It may change names, and that's one thing that's fun about government is that there's someone that's always changing the bills' names. But right now, it's known as the Cost of War Act. And the Cost of War Act is probably one of the most comprehensive toxic exposure bills that has ever been created in the VA. Much like mental health, toxic exposure has been much a silent killer of a lot of veterans that has gone ignored for a long time. Pretty much going all the way back to really World War I with a lot of the toxic, the mustard gas and things like that. World War II, there was a lot of those things. The atomic age with a lot of the testing. There's a lot of atomic vets. There's still some out there, and I spoke with one that actually was at the Bikini Atoll and saw that nuclear bomb go off. And so there's a lot of those kind of things that are still out there that people are ignoring. And so, in 1991, they passed the Agent Orange Act, and it added some presumptives for folks that have been affected by Agent Orange. But over the years, there's been presumptives added. And the senator himself has gotten many added on there. Just last year, he got 3 additional presumptives: hypothyroidism, bladder cancer, and atypical Parkinson's added onto that list, which is another reason for the backlog, because a lot of veterans now qualify. But the problem is that getting a lot of these things whenever the VA runs into issues of toxic exposure, they run to Congress, and they kind of just point the finger at Congress and say, you pass it and let us, be able to do this. And that takes a long time. As you guys know, Congress moves slow, and it depends on the political winds of how things are going. I remember the National Academy of Science and Medicine in late 2016 said that those 3 presumptives I just mentioned needed to be added onto the list. The VA did nothing about it. And so finally, just in late last year, the Tester Amendment in the National Defense Authorization Act was added that. But that still took about 4 years for saying that everyone pretty much agreed was a problem. So the thing that the Cost of War Act does, one of its biggest things, is it changes the way the VA does toxic exposure. And it really gives them the ability to follow the science, follow the experts, and add presumptives and toxic exposure ailments themselves, and pretty much has them stop turning to Congress for it and giving them the tools internally that they need to go forward on it. So it would create multiple committees that, if there's a bunch of veterans that are saying, I am getting sick from such and such ailment and I was deployed here in Iraq, well, they can look into it. And if they start doing research and finding that there are issues there, then they can add a presumptive there, and the VA secretary can take recommendations from these committees and then just do it himself instead of waiting around for Congress to decide to do it. It also does multiple other things, like adding some presumptives for veterans already. There's a few that he threw in there, including a bunch that he was putting in there for Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, which is Iraq and Afghanistan. And a lot of people there were exposed to burn pits, which is starting to kind of rear its ugly head with some of the veterans already. And because of the senator's bill, the VA has already added 8 rare lung issues to toxic exposure ailments for these veterans. So they will be able to get disability and health care via that. And then there's also things in there for Vietnam vets, and one of them is adding hypertension or high blood pressure to that, which is something that a lot of veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange are now facing. And then it also expands the catchment net for folks to Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Guam, because a lot of those vets that served during the Vietnam era that were stationed in those areas, they were spraying that Agent Orange there as well. And so for many years, the VA just kind of ignored it and said, nope, Congress says we don't have to do it. And so this will then enact into law, allowing those expansions to those. And then there's a few other small ones, like the cleanup that a lot of veterans had to do on the Anahuac Atoll, among other things, will be eligible now as well. So that is one of the biggest bills that's coming forward. There's a lot more I could explain it. It's a pretty comprehensive bill. It passed the House recently. We got it to pass committee, and so the senator is hoping with Leader Schumer that we will be able to get some floor time and maybe try to get this thing passed hopefully soon. So fingers crossed that happens. And then, to kind of dovetail into to the video you're going to show, I mean, the senator continues to put a lot of money and investment into the infrastructure for our veterans, especially in rural Montana. And I know that, you know, the Missoula CBOC is one of the recent ones. We just had a new opening in Bozeman and as Butte as well. I know that we're looking at some of the others to try to improve and expand those. I know that there'll probably be some announcements down the road of some of those. But yeah, that's kind of what I have just from the legislative side of what the senator's just working on currently.
Thanks, Chad. Lots of great info there. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So I think instead of showing this video, perhaps I could put the link in the chat and everyone could see it. It's on YouTube. I'd be happy to show it if people would like to see it. It is on the YouTube in the chat right now. Can I see thumbs up, thumbs down somehow? Should I jump into it? It's about a 2.5 minute video. Anyone? Do we have any questions for Chad? I think that's our best use of time. Thank you so much for being here. And you are the conduit to Senator Tester, who has done so much for all of us.
And just know if there is no questions, if there is anything, you guys can reach out anytime. You know, the senator's door is always open. And honestly, the majority of the legislation I've worked on with him for veterans have actually come from on the ground, working with vets. And like the VA Mission Act, I know that Tom was a big part of that as well, getting information for us of what was, I think that's when we first met, was a little town hall we did in Thompson Falls regarding the VA Choice Act, which was kind of a disaster, and the improvement bill, the VA Mission Act, was from folks on the ground. So if there is anything, just never hesitate to reach out to us.
So Charles, if you could ask your question, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Beckenhauser. I am a combat veteran. I'm a medic. I served with 5th Special Forces in Vietnam at a place called Dak To and Duklop. You'll probably know about the name Dak To. I was on the Mike Force too. Anyway, I'm interested in, well, I want to say first, thank goodness for everything that you're doing, you know, for the thank you so much. But there is a lower key. If I could connect with other veterans, if we had an opportunity, not because there's necessarily any immediate trauma or the potential of trauma in our lives, but you know, some people here can tell you the community work that I'm involved in. If we could get veterans together to do, to be more involved if they're not. And I don't mean, you know, professionally as therapists or some of the extreme sports. By the way, I parachute and I rock climb a lot, including in the Tetons. So, you know, it's fun. And I'll send everybody, you know, a letter, but something lower key, getting veterans together, getting involved in a community effort, not political, just for the improvement of the community. And some here, you know, Mindy or Donna can tell you some of the things that I'm in. It's a list, and so there's a website.
So Charles, you're positioned perfectly to be the lead of the Sanders County Democrats, to have a nonpartisan push to further veteran services here in this county. And I know you've done so much already. We thank you.
Yeah, and I've only been retired for a couple of years, so give me 3 or 4 more years. And we'll...
There you go. There you go. Did you have a direct question for Chad?
Well, yes, I do. Let's have a meeting and see what we can do. I'm going to call it the, you know, not the non-immediate trauma group, or the community group. I'd like to meet with you, send a few letters, develop the idea, and then let's see what we can do. It almost will take no funding. It's mostly a matter of communication.
Dad, and could you put your contact information in the email? I mean, in the chat.
So what I'll do is I'll if you want, I can email that to you, Mindy, and then and then you can reach out to me, Charles, and I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with you.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And with that, I think we're going to end today. We are already a little bit over time, but we sure do really appreciate you, Chad, being here. I want to tell you that these videos are available on the Sanders County Dem website under the What Unites Us. This one will have quite a few bumps along the way, but nonetheless, the information is there. And we do have several opportunities here in Sanders County, particularly to get vets to Missoula, to the wonderful facility that Senator Tester was able to get funded. And it's a fabulous brand new facility as of January. So I urge you to check out the YouTube. So without further ado, I think we'll end this for everyone today. And I thank everybody for being here.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for all the veterans I know.
You too.
Not a problem at all. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mindy, for all the work.
Bye now.
Bye.